Elden Ring doesn't give you purpose, it makes you earn one. Elden Ring is often described as a game about challenge, freedom, and exploration. But beneath all of that, it's quietly built around a question the game never asks out loud. You are placed into a world that is broken, stagnant, and filled with competing truths. You are given direction, but no explanation, choice, but no certainty, and as the journey continues, that direction begins to fracture. Most players push through without ever stopping to ask why this feels so different from other games, why it lingers long after the credits roll, why it resonates with people who feel lost, uncertain, or disconnected. To understand that, we need to look at the world of Elden Ring, the role of the Tarnished, and the kind of purpose the game refuses to hand you. Before I get into the story, I should say I've made it very brief and to give some context to the world rather than the full in-depth lore. In the lands between, it exists now in a state of arrested decay, where nothing is fully alive nor is it truly dead, and nothing is allowed to end. The Great War of the Shattering has burnt itself out, leaving nothing but demigods clinging to shards of their power, a world stuck in a catastrophic state of its once prosperous past. Lands have come to rot and decay, death no longer functions as a release, order no longer guides, and the Erd Tree looms as a hollow symbol of an authority that can no longer sustain what it once promised. The land still seeks to finish what still lies unfinished, and the player walks not through living kingdoms, but through the consequences that others have laid upon the land. The lands between came to this state after the War of the Shattering, the shattering of the Elden Ring. Before the Shattering, the lands between were defined by certainty rather than peace. The world held in place by the Golden Order, where there was a clear hierarchy, purpose, and endpoint determined by the Elden Ring. The Erd Tree stood tall as the centre of life and legitimacy. Death was tightly regulated through the removal of destined death, and society functioned under the assumption that the Order was eternal. An age where rebellion was unthinkable. Meaning flowed down from the divine authority, and the world was stable and prosperous. But one very night changed the course of this certainty immediately. The Night of the Black Knives. A rune of death was stolen and was used to forge the god-slain Black Knives. These knives were eventually used to assassinate the Queen Marika's son, Godwyn the Golden, destroying his soul and proving certain death was not impossible. In this time, Queen Marika the Eternal was not only the ruler, but the living vessel for the Elden Ring, and the central figure through which the Golden Order was made real. Chosen by the Greater Will as the Empyrean, her purpose was to embody and enforce the laws of the Elden Ring. Through her, the Erd Tree became the source of legitimacy. Death was removed from the natural cycle, and the hierarchy of gods, demigods, and mortals were fixed. However, Marika was never a blind servant. Over time, she came to understand the cost of this eternal order, seeing that the world without true death or change was not preserved, but instead stagnating in imprisonment. And driven by the assassination of her son, she retaliated by shattering the Elden Ring, while her other half, Radagon, attempted to fix it, but only in vain, also forcing the world to choose a future beyond stagnation. The Greater Will is an unknowable outer god that sought to impose order on the lands between, and it did so by manifesting the Elden Ring, which defined the laws of reality itself. The Golden Order is the mortal interpretation and enforcement of those laws, a religious and political doctrine built around the Elden Ring and embodied by the Queen Marika, which together provided order. After the ring was shattered, the lands between fell into a brutal civil war. Queen Marika's children claimed fragments of the broken Elden Ring and turned on one another in a struggle for legitimacy and power. Figures such as Godric, Radahn, Rykard, Morgoth, Melania, and Rennala either fought one another directly or ruled fractured territories, each of them warping under the influence of their rune. In the end, there was no victor. The war culminated in catastrophic stalemates like the battle between Melania and Radahn, which ended with Caelad's scarlet rot devastation, leaving the demigods broken, isolated, or mad. The world was exhausted, stuck in the aftermath of a conflict that resolved nothing, leaving it to decay until an external force, such as a Tarnished, could decide what the war could not. You are a Tarnished, someone who was once exiled from the lands between and stripped of your guidance of grace. the divine mark that connects someone to the Elden Ring's power. You were tainted in the eyes of the Greater Will because you failed to ascend or be chosen in the past. But after the war, the Greater Will recalls you to the lands between to pursue the Elden Ring and attempt to restore or reshape the order of the world. As you embark on your journey, you come to learn for yourself how ruined and rotten the lands have become, seeing great castles as husks of what they once were. It is a sad and dying realm. You meet people on your journey who give you context and knowledge of this world, guiding you and telling you of their stories, of how this land has come to its sorrowful state. What is your purpose here? Why are you called back to these lands after all that time being exiled? Well, this is for you to find out from exploring the land and discovering what's been left for you to find, facing the consequences of your choices and the observations you have made. However, every figure you meet in the lands between believes they understand what the world needs. Each of them is sincere, each of them is suffering, and none of them agree. That's where the confusion begins. It is now you understand you'll have to make a choice of where you stand in this realm, and what fate ultimately lies ahead for the lands between. You must decide your purpose and chase after it. There are 6 endings in the game. I will not spoil them, even if the game has been out for a while. During your adventures, you meet people and find where they stand within Elden Ring, and what they seek to do. It can be good or bad, but it's up to you who you want to help. Elden Ring gives you this purpose in a way most games don't. It never assigns you one. It won't tell you if you'll be a hero nor a villain. It doesn't say if the choice is right or if achieving your goal will even fix the damage that has already been done. But each ending does reflect an answer to the single unspoken question in the game. Should this world continue as it was? Be repaired? Be replaced? Or be allowed to end? Will restoring the Golden Order fix what has failed to maintain? Or will the other endings solve everything for the future? Then it's time to discover what your purpose is for the people here in the lands between, and for the realm itself. What's important is not that Elden Ring gives you multiple endings, it's that the game never confirms whether any of them were right. There is no divine approval, no moment where the world clearly improves because of what you chose. Even when order is restored, something is lost. Even when the game changes, suffering remains. The game refuses to reward you with certainty, because certainty is what broke the lands between in the first place. Every age before yours was built on someone believing they had the final answer. The Golden Order believed it was eternal. The demigods believed their claim was justified. Each of them acted with conviction, and each left the world worse than they found it. So when your journey ends, Elden Ring does something unusual. It steps back. It doesn't judge your decision. It doesn't tell you if the world is saved. It leaves you alone with the consequences of what you choose. Because purpose in Elden Ring is not about being correct. It's about being responsible. Once you understand the cost of every path, the game asks whether you're willing to live with the outcome you create, even without reassurance that it was the best possible one. That's the moment your role as the Tarnished becomes clear. You aren't here to find the right answer, you're here to choose, despite never knowing if one exists. The subtlety that Elden Ring has on this dilemma is astonishing, and it can actually be reflected in your own life. For example, the grace guides you the same way school, parents, and religions do, showing you a path to follow, giving you something you have to chase. NPCs have their own partial truths, suffering, and seek help to validate their worldview. And through this, the guidance eventually breaks, lies, or contradicts itself. You aren't living to fulfill someone else's meaning, you seek your own fulfillment. And that will mean walking away from the guidance of grace and having to explore yourself and see what meaning is out there for you. The problem here for a lot of us, and possibly you, is we get lost. Without the guidance, we wander too far in a direction that isn't where we truly want to be. We spend too much time lingering, holding on to what we have that's familiar, something that's certain. These new areas could be an uncertain destiny we may not want to commit to. Lingering too long puts us in a mental purgatory, lost without meaning. How do we escape this purgatory? Once grace disappears or is lost, the solution to finding your next calling isn't to stop acting and wait, nor is it to have meaning at all. The solution to finding where you belong is to move without meaning, try new avenues or trying things that feel impossible. With every attempt, You leave the stagnation of being lost. It removes the uncertainty of what wasn't certain, letting you know if that's the direction you want to go. You don't need purpose for a new area or for finding the right ending for you. You just need a direction, a will to allow yourself to be wrong and fail. You don't wait for clarity. You don't wait for confidence, nor do you wait for permission. You choose a direction that is slightly terrifying and you just move. Through every Caelid is another Limgrave. It's up to you to change where your life pulls you, because no one else is in control. And it's then you'll see you've always had a choice in your purpose. You don't discover your purpose by being chosen. You discover it the moment you decide to move and accept the consequences of that choice. Elden Ring never tells you who you're meant to be. It never promises that your choice will heal the world, or that the ending you pursue is the correct one. It only gives you a broken land, conflicting truths, and freedom to act within them. And in doing so, it asks something far more difficult than most games ever do. What will you take responsibility for once you understand how broken things truly are? That is why the game resonates so deeply, because real life works the same way. The guidance we're given eventually fractures, the structures we trust reveal their limits, and at some point we're forced to confront the world shaped by decisions we didn't make, but must now live with. Purpose doesn't arrive as an answer handed down from above. It forms when you choose a direction despite uncertainty, accept the consequences of that choice, and continue forward anyway. You are not waiting to be chosen. You already are the Tarnished, cast out, recalled, and standing in a world that won't tell you what comes next. The only thing left to decide is whether you will linger in stagnation or step forward and shape something new from what remains. There is no perfect ending, only the one you commit to. And just like that in the lands between, once you made your choice, your journey doesn't end.